The first thing we do is we set up an office and we get one of those lay down psychiatric couches and we invite both the sales leader and the marketing leader to come in and just air all their dirty laundry.
You know what? You're joking, but I think you're probably pretty close.
Well, and I am joking, but I'm not, because I think part of what creates the most amount of friction between sales and marketing is marketing is so used to not being listened to that they start projecting on other people and they stop listening. And sales is so pressurized up for hitting a specific number and feeling like they're being let down by marketing that they're not actively listening to what marketing is trying to do. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, through probably 3 or 4 conversations, you can identify that it's, oh, this is really, your issue is here, here, and here. And these 3 things boil down to you're not listening, you're not talking, or you really haven't set each other's expectations appropriately of how you're handling X, Y, or Z. And because there's a lack of communication, you're busy working on arts and crafts marketer, you're busy, driving sales and sitting in board meetings and feeling like you're constantly in the hot seat sales. You guys aren't listening to one another. And even though you're close to being aligned, it feels like you're miles apart because you just aren't communicating. And it's pretty simple for most organizations to go, oh, this is a communication problem. The communication problem is a byproduct of the process. The process is a byproduct of technology. The technology is a byproduct of somebody else built it. And these 2 guys came in. You hired a salesperson. It was built around Ron or Sheila, and they did things in a high velocity, high transaction. It was all e-commerce model. And then we went and we got Shane or Sue, and Shane and Sue are more methodical. They believe in a longer sales cycle. The way they handle things are different. And nobody ever told Peggy or told Douglas, our person in charge of marketing, that we actually changed our process from high velocity sales transactional. And so Doug's building everything to be transactional, and Sue and Shane are going, this is not the type of stuff I need. This is not how we do business.
I'm going to ask you some uncomfortable questions. Does ego play into this a lot within an organization?
Ego plays into everything.
Yeah.
And ego doesn't have to be bad, right? Because the moxie it takes to run a high performance sales organization, you got to have some ego, right? I mean, yeah. you got to have some confidence. The ego you need to think that you can convince an entire market that you're the best brand out there, there's some pretty big ego in that, right? And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when you're convinced that you're right and you're not listening, it doesn't matter what the other person says, right, or what your gifts are, they're not being utilized to their fullest extent.
So what kind of processes do you put in place then to kind of help that break down? What's if I was going to go in 6 months later to an organization that you assisted, what does it look like before and after?
Well, before, you would have sales and people snickering each other when they cross in the break room. Now, today that won't happen, but they might be having back channel conversations on Zoom. In future state, sales and marketing, they align through a weekly meeting. And what I believe, and this is because I'm a sales guy turned marketer, I believe that the benevolence really needs to come from the marketing team. The number one challenge that tends to happen is that sales is so busy engaging and trying to bring revenue in and turning over rocks. They're not paying attention or slowing down enough to see what the heck marketing is doing to help them. So we would implement several very basic things for an organization. One, a weekly marketing meeting where marketing is talking about opportunities and revenue. So what do we think's happening? How do we think what we're doing is influencing revenue? Now, there's no salesperson in this room, but it is tying marketing to thinking about what's happening with revenue and holding themselves accountable to the outcome that their sales team is also being held accountable to, right? It's a subconscious thing that when they're doing their programming or their sprinting or whatever they do, however they do their project management, it keeps their eye on the prize from a revenue standpoint. Additionally, once a week in organizations or twice a month, marketing needs to be presenting to sales in 20 minutes or less what they're working on, what they did, and what the outcomes were. Now, some of it's vanity metrics, some of it's show and tell, some of it is boring. But if you carve out 20 minutes every week, sales will get used to seeing what's going. And marketing now has a captured audience of 5 to 10 or whatever the number of salespeople are for that closed loop feedback that it's happening consistently. So it's not now I have to go interrupt Betty, or I have to go grab Courtney off the phones, or I need to go interrupt Ben in order to get my feedback. I have a dedicated time where if somebody brings up an idea, I can get it in a chorus where salesperson A may say, oh, I'm seeing this. And salesperson B may say, yeah, me too. Or they may say, no, I'm not seeing it at all. But you've got a closed loop room where you're getting all of the voices at once as it relates to your campaigns, as it relates to the things that are happening. And what you'll see is 6 months later, sales is now invested in what marketing is doing. Marketing is now building campaigns that are better aligned to sales because they're listening to one another and they were intentional about just doing the activity.
Yeah.
Here's what we're doing. Now I'm going to let you talk to me. And that loop really does make a monumental difference in how an organization performs.
I couldn't imagine. I mean, some of the organizations that I worked with were pretty bizarre as far as, marketing was on a different floor, different, scope, different everything, than the sales team. And it was almost funny. In one organization that I worked at, they would come out, the marketing team would come out with the new sales deck, once every 6 months or whatever, with the new products and new features and everything else. And then I was a product manager at the company. So I got to sit in with sales and sit in with the marketing team and sit in with customers as well. And so I would get on a sales call and I would see the 4-year-old slide deck.
Right.
But here's the deal. The slide deck was simple and it worked for the sales rep for the last 4 years. And he's like, I don't care about your new features. I don't care about anything like that. I got the same message. I close business with the same message every year, and that's why I'm not switching to it. And so it was hilarious. It was marketing was doing so much work, and not that they were doing bad work. They were trying their best and they were evaluating the market and forms and, and customer feedback and everything else, but not talking to these sales guys and ladies was just their Achilles heel. Because those were the guys that knew the pulse. They knew who the competitors were that were creeping up. They knew, budget wise, what people were willing to spend or not spend. They knew which features were missing that they were losing deals on.
That's right.
They knew everything.
Well, and what I would say is I think this is one of the distinctions where I've met with other organizations that are like, well, we have a meeting and we send a single person. No. It's a 20-minute investment for the entire sales team. So your entire marketing team better be there as well, because the guy that's doing the design, the person that's doing the plumbing, if you have multitudes, if you have an agency, it is non-negotiable that the people that are doing the work to create the things that sales is using, that they're in the room and they're hearing what sales is saying. It's no secondhand playing telephone. Amen. You're in that room. It's 20 minutes. If you can't devote 20 minutes, you might as well get out of the business game. Like, it's just give up now. Because you have 20 minutes for a coffee break. You have 20 minutes for a Kit Kat. You have 20 minutes for lunch. Yeah. Make your team spend time for 20 minutes to make your business high performance.